Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 938. I started off with c4 and my opponent went c5. So I've got a symmetrical English here. I often play a symmetrical English as well, although with a slightly different idea in mind. I'm trying usually to get the knight here and a quick d5 in when I play this. Anyway, I continue with g3, he goes g6, and we get a slight alteration. When I bring out the knight, he brings out the bishop. I bring out the bishop, he brings out the knight. So we're still symmetrical at this point. And I play e4. And he could actually maintain the symmetry by playing e5. But, well, let's talk about this. e4 is a sign that I'm going for the Botvinnik setup. And I'm keeping this knight back because I want to eventually play f4 as well as e4, or have that possibility. And the knight ends up on the e2 square. So that's my plan. But the most popular move here is actually knight f3, and that's certainly quite a solid way to play. Also, a3 and e3 are reasonable moves. They restrict the knight. e3 also prepares the d4 push. So all those are reasonable ways to play, but e4 is okay as well. And now he goes d6, so he's not trying to fight against the Botvinnik. You know, you can try to fight against it by playing e6 and d5 and trying to blow up the center. Or you could just play knight f6. That's fine as well, but d6 seems to be okay. And d3 or knight ge2, these are both part of the Botvinnik setup. He goes knight f6 now, and I go d3. He castles, and I castle. And you can see actually the numbers went up a little bit there. You can get to this position by different move orders. So here, knight e8 is a move to try and liberate the f-pawn there, so he can come forward and attack the center from the side. But he chose a6, reasonable way to play. I played a4. Actually, I was thinking about this during the game. I don't know this position exactly, and I was wondering whether I should play it. I don't have to play it here, but the main way of playing this position is to play h3 first, and after rook b8, then play a4. So it all amounts to the same thing. So playing a4 when I did is okay. He goes rook b8, and I go h3, and we get to the same position by a different move order. Now he goes knight e8, and I go bishop e3. So even though I'm no longer in the opening book in terms of my own knowledge, it's kind of a standard way to play, and it looks like these lines have been played before. So he continued with knight d4. An interesting move, hitting this square here and stopping me from playing queen d2, which is my natural follow-on. So I played rook b1, and it turns out, once again, this is the move in the opening book. A bit surprising, but that, I guess it's kind of a logical move. You're just getting the rook away from the knight fork. You're preparing to push the b-pawn forward. And let's see, he went bishop d7. And now here is a minor inaccuracy from me that actually gives an advantage to black at this point in the game. I went b3. My idea was just to keep his knight out of b3 and just shore up the pawns over here. So, he's going to try and push forward with the b-pawn at some point. But I could preempt that by playing b4 myself. And this is a position that seems to be a slight edge to white. Looking at this after rook takes b4. So the queen comes out to harass the rook, and the queen comes over here. Cancel that. Queen comes to b1, defending the rook and putting pressure on this pawn. Let's see, the knight can hop into c2, force me to take the pawn, and maybe grab the bishop here. So it's a complicated position, I guess. Things are going on the queen side, but it seems like it's a good opportunity for white to open up the queen side and get some play over here. I usually play the Botvinnik system with the idea of going forward on the king side, so I didn't really think too much about that b5 move, or b4 move, but it's actually the best move right there. Anyway, let's get back to the game. I played b3. Yeah, we're just out of the book at this point, so wow, how did that get so large? Let's go back to the notation tab, and b3 is what I played. So let's see, he played b5, and I could take, but I didn't see any need to take right away. I went queen d2, trying to improve my queen position. It's actually a slight inaccuracy, but we'll get back to this. There's a key point coming up here. He goes knight c7, and I go bishop h6. That was the point of my queen d2 move, which was to support the bishop coming to that square. But there's actually a tactic for black right here. I mentioned this in the comment to the game. So this is the point I was talking about. So if you didn't spot this during the game, see if you can find the best move for black right here. Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away right now. The answer is b5, b4. Hitting this knight and taking advantage of the overloaded position of my queen. So notice that if I drop my knight back, he can just take this knight. And when I take back, my bishop is hanging. The queen was doing two jobs. That's the problem. And the queen was defending the knight, and the queen was defending the bishop. And that's why b4 was necessary. It drives this knight away. And what's interesting is that it has to be in this move order. If you take the knight first, I can just take back with the knight, so there's no problem. If you take the bishop first, I can take with the queen. Then you play b4. I have a way to escape. I can take here first, and then move this knight somewhere. Maybe there. This is a position that's probably a little better for black anyway, but I don't lose material. So, so the move order has to be precise. You have to start with b4. And now the trick after b4, the trick of taking here, doesn't work because you can take here, hitting my queen first. And after I take back, I've got two pieces hanging, the bishop and the knight. So I'm still going to lose material after I move the queen. It doesn't matter if I take or just move the queen away. In any case, I'm going to be losing material. So, so anyway, an interesting tactic there. Has to start with b4. And there's just no escape for me at that point. I'm going to lose a piece. Well, he missed that, and fortunately for me, the game continued. He played e5 here, and I went ahead and did this exchange, so now the tactic is no longer on because the queen is not overloaded. And this position is about even, but it's a tense kind of even, and I have to play this in the right order. It seems like the best way to play this is to take here first, because I was left with some weak pawns over here in the game. That got me into trouble. If I take first and then take the knight, then take the knight, and then I can hop into here. If he takes my knight off, we'll get a symmetric position. The chess engine at first glance likes black a little better, but it's not a huge edge. I think it's a position that's okay for white too, but his bishop is a little better than my bishop, which is blocked in behind these pawns. And of course my plan will be to push the f-pawn forward and try and liberate this bishop. So, you know, that's how the game might continue. Let's see, I took first. It's kind of a rule of thumb. I want to take here when a piece appears there, because I want him to take back with a pawn. I don't want to leave a piece on that square, and I don't want to give him time to play a move like knight to e6 there, which would support his knight and allow him to take back with a piece. So I was in a hurry to take that off, and I did that without thinking too much about the consequences. But my position is a little bit awkward here. After knight takes d5, you know, and I decided, oh, I took with the e-pawn. I thought this gives a little more scope to the bishop, and I can still bust out with the f4 move there. So I think this is still okay, although the chess engine does like black in these positions. Let's see, b takes a4. Well, actually, there is one more chance to equalize here. So maybe it's not till after I play b4 that I'm really in trouble. You know, the chess engine sometimes goes back and forth each move. It turns out I should just take this pawn. I thought I would be losing it, but it doesn't turn out to be the case. He can exchange rooks, then grab the pawn. I can play queen a2. Hits the bishop, and when the bishop moves, I take the pawn. And if he tries something like queen d7, I can line up with the rook and the queen And I'm just getting that pawn back. He has no way to defend it. It's kind of funny. I just did not spot that during the game. So that's the way to play it. Instead, I went with b4 here, planning to round up these pawns on the queen side later. And that is a bit troublesome here. I overlooked something here. So anyway, he went queen c7, and I brought the other rook over. I think this is still playable. It's after f5, I went c5. And that's the move that really cost me the game, or should have, I should say. So f4 is given as a way to continue. I mean, black has an extra pawn at this point, but it's this doubled rook pawn, so it's not too impressive. This weakens my king side, but gives me some play against the center. And there's still a slight edge to black in this position, but probably a playable game from that point. Anyway, c5 just loses, and it's because I overlooked this that I can't take back. I was trying to get this pawn duo going, where this pawn supported by my rook, this pawn supported by my bishop. But if I were to take, this is just a blunder, because he trades rooks, grabs this pawn, and now this pawn is weak, and yeah, I'm just in big trouble. These pawns are starting to look dangerous over here. So that is winning for black. So I should play something like rook to a1 according to the chess engine. That's the best defense. Just he can't take this pawn right away. The queen's defending it. He can lift his rook up to b5, which maintains control over the c5 square. So I can't really take there. He'll take back and have a good position once again. But I could play queen e1 here, keeping an eye on the pawn and taking a look at the center. And the game might continue, but with an advantage to black, probably winning. Anyway, I've tried rook. Oh, cancel that. After, let's see, c5. He went d takes c5. I tried rook takes c5. Not as good as just rook a1. And so he's winning after this. He goes queen d6. I go rook to c6. So it looks like a desperate measure, and it is. It's not really approved of by the chess engine, but I'm just going for things that might give me some practical chances here. It's other moves lose as well, so why not try something a little offbeat? So I gave up the exchange there to try and get a passed pawn. Let's see, he plays this part well. He plays rook fc8, so he's still winning all through this section. Let's see, he manages to grab the pawn and give the exchange back. Not necessarily best, but it's a way to simplify things, and he still has a winning position. So he's managed to keep his advantage. Let's see, I think he's got a two-pawn edge, because, yeah, I have these two pawns against those two. Yeah, he's got these two extra pawns here. And that's enough to win. Let's see, he went, oh, it's my turn here. I went queen a3, trying to round up one of these pawns. He went rook c8. I went b5, trying to open up a line so I can get my queen in. Once again, it's if you're already losing, then it's easy to make some sacrifices. And that did allow my queen in. And now it's a bit tricky, although he's still winning with correct play here. So I went, he went king g8. I went queen takes e5, so I got the pawn back. He's still 2 pawns up. It's this next move, queen c5. Just a little too eager to trade queens, and after that, he's losing. He could play a3 here. I mean, he was also defending the b pawn. But if I grab the b pawn, I'm going to be a little too late to stop the a pawn from going forward. So it's not actually safe for me to take that b pawn. So pushing the pawn forward with a3 is the winning idea in this position. And his queen, where it is guarding against checks on the light squared diagonal. So I can't get any more counterplay here. And this pawn doesn't really matter. If he just pushes on with a3, his threats are too big. But anyway, this is understandable, right? He's protecting his pawns and offering a queen trade. But what he must have missed is that this is just a draw now, because there's no way to escape the checks, or no good way. Let's see, he tried king g7, but the chess engine went to a draw right after queen c5, so there was no way out. king g7. Let's see, I go queen d7 check. Oops, went queen d7 check. Looking at this pawn still, looking at the king. Let's see, he goes king h6, which is a reasonable try, but now I can take this pawn, and I guess I'll be in time to stop this pawn from coming forward, or maybe I'm quick enough to get the counterattack here. In any case, a3 doesn't seem to work anymore. He played queen c1 check, lift my king up. He went queen c6 check and forced the queen trade, which if things were fair, you might think this would be a win for black. Finally goes into an endgame of pawn up, but it's just a pawn, and my rook is able to get behind his pawn. So in fact, there is no way to win this game. This is still just a draw the whole way. He takes, put my rook here behind the pawn. He can't defend, but he can counterattack. So I get this pawn, he gets my pawn. But his positions are just, his pieces are just too awkwardly arranged. His king is too far away, and my king is going to get over here in time to stop this pawn. And in fact, I even win that pawn, and there's no way for him to prevent that. It's already my turn here. I go king f1. He started to bring his king over with king g5. I go king e2, and then he has to move his rook away, and I'll win that pawn. And it's a draw. In the game, he actually played rook a3, which I assume is a mouse slip. The chess engine is giving either rook b3 or rook c3 as a draw. I would just take here, and it's just even. Anyway, interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye.